What is going on, guys? Welcome into Frogs and Friends. Another week filled full with news in the Bitcoin space. We got with us here Krash, Adam, Ryan, and Meta. What's going on, boys?
What's
What's up,
up?
man?
Fellas?
All right, all right. So first and foremost, one of the biggest news, I guess, as of Thursday here of this week. Adam, you wanted to touch on how Iran is accepting Bitcoin for the Strait of Hormuz as far as like insurance purposes.
Yeah, so when I saw that Lego video about Iran creating a Bitcoin insurance, it seemed like really stupid. You know those stupid Lego videos, the Iranian propaganda Lego videos. Anyway, it really started hitting me the next day. I'm like, Bitcoin insurance. Like, think about that concept for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got Sailor who's built digital credit. What is the best asset to wrap insurance around?
hmm
I mean, like, it, not only that, it's super simple. You just take Bitcoin as a premium,
Yeah,
and if you're going to pay out, even like in our old rails where we're still using dollars, even if they have to pay out a claim, they're just converting Bitcoin to dollars, right?
hmm
Then put the Bitcoin credit lens on top of Bitcoin insurance. Like Meta, I don't know if you've thought through this, but this is starting to like just throw light bulbs left and right on what
yeah.
that can become.
Walton, Jeff Walton has talked a little bit about this. I mean, I'm sure he's probably talked about it more than I've heard him talk about it. But the bit that I've heard, and early in my career, I worked on a large scale reinsurance litigation. I had to scan documents from like the 70s. They were like really hard to scan because a lot of them were like this weird kind of paper. Anyway, I didn't even know what reinsurance was. I didn't understand the whole concept, and then gradually built an understanding of really the whole premise of insurance, right? You've got premiums coming in. I mean, the business model, I'll oversimplify it, but you have premiums coming in that typically will handle the claims. It's all just about risk, right? They have incredible technology for essentially climate, weather models and
Yeah.
life insurance. They know what they can tell you when you're going to die. Like they could basically watch what you eat for a week and or what you do in your spare time, what your hobbies are. And so insurance companies really have turned the I mean, really, if you want to say it in layman's terms, betting on events. And then they have their balance sheet, right, where they hold things. And yeah, you could do it with digital credit, or you could just simply look at Bitcoin, because what is the bet on Bitcoin? The bet on Bitcoin is that they're going to continue to create more underlying fiat currency. So it really does make sense from an insurance provider's perspective to even hold Bitcoin directly. And the idea of just simply calling it like what they're doing here, what Iran is doing with Hormuz Safe, and apparently they've launched a website. I didn't look at the website or anything, but the fact that they name it Hormuz Safe is just,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's funny.
so let's go back to what Jeff Walton said, because the first time I heard him talk about insurance in the framework of Bitcoin was his debate with CoffeeZilla.
hmm
And essentially, he wasn't talking about creating a Bitcoin insurance. He was talking about the definition of
Digital credit.
A Ponzi scheme, right? He's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
so he was basically saying, well, what is an insurance company?
yeah.
They're not selling their assets to pay claims. They're paying their claims via the premiums that are paid in, right? So
hmm
so out of whatever percentage of premiums that, let's say, Iran takes in, so out of 100% of their premiums in Bitcoin they take in, let's say they lose one ship, that represents 10% of what they take in, and that's just going to be from their premium paid out, right? So, and they're still keeping the underlying asset. I mean, what that could be. Think about the accelerated accumulation rate of Bitcoin with insurance,
hmm
outside of like income funds and all this other stuff. That could be that could be monumental.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's very interesting. I mean, as far as like my thoughts on it, they're very underbaked at this stage because it really just got announced. But the concept of it, and even just the headlines to go along with it,
Yeah.
because you also have to ask. one of the bullet points as far as key takeaways that Yahoo Finance has an article on it, is the system would allow vessels to pay insurance premiums in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Now that's an interesting part, right? Because they've already had some of their stable coins seized. So
Yeah, dude.
I think
Well, they can
people are, yeah.
they can take the Snickle Fritz crypto and pay the claims out. You know, they keep the Bitcoin. You know,
Yeah. Or maybe they just take the payment and they immediately convert to Bitcoin is what I likely think would probably be the plan.
right? Right.
But the key part of that bullet is bypassing SWIFT and Western sanctions. So I think people are getting a little lesson here in a type of power projection, right? That on the world stage, here is this, adversary of the West, or the U.S. specifically, who is now basically saying, yeah, they don't have any power over our ability to accumulate wealth, essentially, as a country or as a regime. I just think that's the bigger story, it kind of baked into this, and I think it is yet another sort of notch on the escalation of the potential soft war narrative kind of showing itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a little bit of a bigger scale, I guess you could say. This Iran deal, like with the trucker strike in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and how they kind of bypassed the government of Canada and Trudeau and such to be able to get funds when the government stopped, all the GoFundMe's and donations and everything for that strike.
Yeah, this is nation state.
It's a new playbook for people that want to go around that shit for sure. So Lloyd's of London's had a monopoly on that straight forever. And like I said in a previous podcast with you guys here on Frogs and Friends, that I think this is just cutting off one of the heads of the Hydra here. And like their monopoly is totally screwed. So I don't know if this is real, just Iran, or if it's, it's a part of the deal of the backroom negotiations or what. I have to think there's something, but it's like they're bypassing Swift, like Meta said, and they're also, they're getting instant coverage, like for the insurance on the blockchain, because it's like on-chain verification, like instantly, versus taking days through Swift, and showing how weak of a system the fiat world and central banking is. So this is showing Bitcoin and its power and software, I think, as well. And once there's people that are paying attention, so
Yeah. It's Krash. I sent you a video as Fox News also attempting to kind of like shed some light on this.
Okay.
But it's like they missed the point here, because they keep saying like, oh well, it's easily trackable, and they keep conflating crypto and Bitcoin in this clip. Mm-hmm. But I want to see your guys' take on kind of like how this conflation is going to start becoming very clear, like a clear distinction. Like, bro, yeah, they seized crypto, they didn't seize Bitcoin.
Hi, good morning, Stuart. The good news is the Trump administration is already stopping it. In fact, we confirmed that the U.S. Treasury has been able to trace some of Iran's money, and just last month they froze more than $300 million. This was in regime crypto, Stuart. Iran is reportedly launching a new digital insurance platform for cargo ships. This is in the Strait of Hormuz, and here's the kicker. They're settling payments entirely in Bitcoin. Basically, this is how it works. The companies pay the insurance companies in Bitcoin, and they get through the strait safely. That's the trade-off. It's a direct move to dodge our banks and scoop up a fresh source of cash. And this covers a much larger shadow economy. New estimates from a threat detection data firm show Tehran is sitting on a crypto pile worth a staggering $7.7 billion. That war chest has been expanding ever since heavy sanctions cracked down. This was during the first Trump administration, by the way. And here's a look at the price of crude right now. The hot board's up. Prices are trading near recent highs as regional shipping tensions, they're flaring, but the regime is counting on crypto to keep its military funded. The Treasury Department is tracking the digital breadcrumbs, and they're telling Fox, here's the statement over here, through economic fury, Treasury has taken actions that have led to the freezing of nearly $500 million worth of cryptocurrency linked to the Iranian regime, severing financial lifelines that Iran's regime and military depend on. According to crypto experts, Tehran's tech is actually their weak spot here.
We found over and over again that they're actually a much better asset for U.S. law enforcement and other agencies to track, because you leave a lot of breadcrumbs.
So I said the administration is taking action, but how do we actually stop this? Industry insiders say Washington has a massive trump card here by threatening to cut off crypto exchanges from the American banking system. Regulators could actually then flush out these foreign adversaries. Stuart?
And we'll see if we do that.
Okay.
You like
So
that trump card reference?
Yeah, well, they start with Bitcoin, and then they all of a sudden switch to crypto, right? So they had $7.5 billion in assets, or I believe, in Bitcoin assets. I remember a story. It was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where they froze like some XRP, some ETH, like all these other shit coins. But they're conflating the two. They did not make the distinction. They just cut to crypto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because I do remember that, because that was a part of the tether when they
yeah. Oh, it was tether they seized too. That's right.
Yeah,
it was tether. Yeah.
What I kind of got from that newscast, there's probably a hint of it maybe, and it could go in this direction, but this could also be like the mainstream media and whoever controls it actually trying to vilify Bitcoin here, saying Iranian regimes are using it and
100%
screwing with our Western central banking and all that, what they just said. And, so they're definitely scared of it. And I think that's where that narrative was probably going to try to steer towards and try to influence people to think. So they stay away from Bitcoin, probably while they accumulate it themselves. And then at the same time, it's, blocking, they're tracking addresses and they're going to block exchanges. Well, and that just tells you get your coins off the exchange for sure. So I don't know.
Yeah. Who needs an exchange when he could just exchange Bitcoin peer to peer?
Well, just keep self custody. I mean, that's just another that right there. That's the basic message I got out of the very end of that was just self custody.
So Ryan, to your point, it's probably a lot of people are like, well, I'll just stick with gold because there's not a lot of breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but
just buy your gold and then take it down to the bank and sell it and see what and try to get what the market's actually asked. They won't give you
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They don't. It's not what it's trading at. They won't buy it at that. It's just there's always a fee or there's no, we're not buying it at the market value, and people just get wrecked. So
yeah. Your radius for gold and metals is only so wide. You can't give it to someone in Japan in an hour, or you can't walk to Japan or wherever you gotta go. It's pretty simple once you see it or once you learn about it. But that, Adam, like what you say all the time, I could tell this person doesn't do the work or hasn't done the work.
Yeah,
Bitcoin, and it you see it it's like a sore thumb. It sticks out. But yeah, since we are on the topic of Iran here, Trump is giving Iran to the weekend here, which is a couple days here now, for a peace deal. Do you think this is just going to be another rug, or you think this is going to be it this time?
A rug, probably. I don't know. You guys, what do you guys think?
What's more likely? I just am so. I mean, all of this stuff, it just has become so much. It's just noise. I don't think it. I mean, how many times has this happened now? That there's been a sort of teasing that there would be some kind of an
I feel
agreement.
like 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah,
Really? I thought
isn't like Saudi Arabia now getting involved and all that stuff?
With like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and
they're starting to put pressure now on the peace deal too, I believe. So, and I think it comes down to getting the nuclear dust and whatever out of there, and but I think getting all that I don't know. There's so much going on there, and honestly, I think it's already been taken care of because he's already moved on to Cuba now, so it's perfect. So.
Well, Ryan,
closer to Canada. Yeah,
I think you nailed on something though. Remember, he built the Board of Peace, and it was based out of the Middle East, right? And this is well before the Iran War, maybe like a couple months before the Iran War. He had it shored up. Hey, who wants to take part in the Board of Peace? And I think it was like the European nations pulled out; they didn't want any part of it. So essentially, he's building the new UN out of the Middle East. So all these countries in that region are stakeholders in what happens to Iran. So I think even though there's this back and forth seesaw of, oh, well, we're going to strike, or, oh, we're going to give them a chance to make a deal, or, back and forth, I think this seems more like to start building in that coalition in the Middle East to be all on board to, hey, here's the plan post-war with Iran of how we're going to redevelop the Middle East and how we're going to rebuild, the trade systems, that have been basically run by the British since the beginning, or since the last World War II, right? So it seems like this negotiation really, Iran is just kind of like an excuse, and the rest of this is really to get all that region in line to start to for all of them to want to move forward and get past this old system.
Mm-hmm.
So however long it takes, I don't know.
I think that the world's being carved up into different pieces. Like I think Trump's going to take care of the Western Hemisphere, and and if there is a sovereign alliance like Bernie Bright talks about, then Putin's going to have a territory, and so will China, right? And
Yep.
I think I think those guys will actually start trading a little better after his meeting with China there, and like I said, he's starting to remove these stakeholders at places like Venezuela and Cuba. I mean, where you've had Russian influence or you had Chinese influence, and they're not doing nothing about it.
No.
Trump just cut off oil from Venezuela and Iran, which was supplying China, and I mean they didn't do anything about it. And so there's obviously, I think there's a deal there going forward. We just don't know what it is yet. So
right.
I don't know. I could be totally wrong, and but because none of us really know, we don't have all the information. We just have to try to put pieces of the puzzle together and look at it and figure it out with all these huge holes in it. But I mean, I don't know. It kind of makes sense. Like there's no aggression from China when he cut off two supply lines of oil, and now I think isn't China buying it from the United States now? Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
they're buying like 200 Boeing planes as well, and investing like $1 trillion now. Yeah, I mean that's another thing. We didn't really talk about the outcome last week of the Trump and China meeting. Anything big on that side, like that Trump really walked away with?
To Ryan's point, we're not seeing any aggression from China. Iran was their second largest or first largest supplier of oil, but China rolls out the red carpet for Trump.
Right.
Like takes him to the fucking Garden of Heaven or whatever the hell that place is called.
Which is the lines here, yeah. Like, and he brought over the smartest people and most powerful CEOs of companies over on Air Force One to visit with China and talk about trading. I mean, do you think we're going to go? We're going to go into a golden age globally if we can't have the three superpowers who are supposed to be all up hating each other and threatening nuclear war for the last few decades as a Cold War? Do you think we can go forward in a golden age where those people aren't friends and unified in some way? Like, why do they have to be our enemies? Why can't we have good relationships with people like that? It doesn't have to be that way, right? So I don't know.
Z even said the same thing you're saying, like exactly what you're saying. He's like, why be rivals? Let's work together and build a bright future for humanity. Like he even said it.
Yeah. You just got to get rid of this evil freaking cartel that's called whatever the hell they are, that's been putting the thumb on the people of the world and countries for forever, right? We just got to. I mean, but it's not going to happen in 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It's been been in this battle for a long time, I think, and like I say, Bitcoin is, as G says, Bitcoin is the best weapon against it. Like, because this is how you take away their power. If you take away their money, it all goes back to Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is the answer. It's the soft war. It's the self custody. It's the sound, honest money. Whatever. We all know the Bitcoin stuff, but that's what it is. It really is. It's like it's neutering them, and we're just getting to watch it. And I don't know. It's been fun, to tell you the truth.
It's unfuckwithable. And that's why that fucking news, that Fox News bullshit of conflating the two is confusing people. But I don't know how much longer they can continue to do that.
I don't know.
They're all going to be invested in it eventually. Once MSTR hits the S&P 500, everybody in North America will be invested, and then some will be invested in Bitcoin in some
Yeah.
area. So
with
nothing can stop what is coming. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, with
100%.
Stretch and MSTR, one way or the other, you're going to be invested in the Bitcoin in some level, and I agree though, but I think it is they're going to keep fooling people, Adam. To your point, yeah, eventually they're not going to be able to do that, mixed signals like that with crypto and Bitcoin and shit, but I think it's going to take a little bit longer until I'm going back to your point once again here. Until people actually try to figure something out for themselves, and they're going to keep getting fooled, and they're going to think Ethereum's the same as Dogecoin as XRP. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's tough.
Did you guys see that video of a sailor on
Squawk Box?
yeah, on Squawk Box?
Yes. Well, which one? Talking about digital credit, right? The one that came out.
Yes.
Join the transition transmission. Like, share, and subscribe to Frogs and Friends.
So he's been a Bitcoin proponent, but listening to him talk to Sailor, it's like
I
he doesn't
know.
shit, bro. He's like
I know.
121 million. I'm like, bro, like, and I'm surprised Sailor didn't even jump in and correct him, but he was just like, whatever, just
I know. I was
So-
kind of wowed by that too, because even now granted, like, yeah, he's not a maxi or anything, but like to your point, like he does like Sailor and stuff. He somewhat understands what they're trying to do, but then when they pulled out the term credit or stretch, he was lost. Like he didn't have 40 years experience in the stock market or in preferreds or whatever. Like he didn't even know what do you guys call this? Is this preferred? Like he asked that like right at the beginning, and then even by the end of the segment, he's still like, I don't know what you want to call this stretch. Like he doesn't even know what the
dude. It's like they're being pulled into a realm they know nothing about, and they've been in that realm their whole life.
Yeah, and that's where I'm gonna bring us down the earth, I think, a little bit, to where, as far as the transitional period, it's gonna be longer than what we all think. Like we're gonna be here for another couple years probably. Now, depending how we feel during that time, it all depends. Depending what, like, if obviously if the people that have Bitcoin and Bitcoin related shit is going to be okay, going to be fine. But if you're not, you're going to be struggling these next couple years plus. So yeah, it's just, and to your point, Joe, and the Squawk Box, like even people that are familiar with, I guess, the market, fiat, just the way things have been working the last 100 years. Yeah, they're just as smart as the next guy down the street. Your average.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're not the experts anymore. That's what's starting to reveal itself, which is really interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Good deal.
Hey, one question before we move on with that Strait of Hormuz and Iran and their Bitcoin, and they're talking about insuring all these things. Like, what are they insuring? Like, I thought, aren't they completely almost decimated? Like, isn't their Navy at the bottom of the ocean and their Air Force completely decimated and anti-air? Like, if they're like completely neutered, or is it just down to terrorist cells now that or is it posturing that they have mines in the strait, or like what is the deal? Like, why would anybody pay them in Bitcoin for insurance to go through there?
Well, it's just a different way. I mean, they were calling it a toll before.
Right.
And the toll was just simply saying that, we're going to guarantee your safety. It's kind of, I mean, it on the surface sounds a lot like, like the old mob, charging the shopkeepers protection fees, right? And they protect them from who? Them.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though.
Right.
But if they've been gelded so much by the U.S. military, I mean,
well,
I don't know. Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So is this actually just a show to say, hey, Bitcoin gets around the central banking? Like, is that the real message in this, or I don't know? That's what I'm trying to figure out. That's why I don't know who's actually like behind this narrative right now.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to think about it. I don't think there's any way we can know what's going on, but the story that's being told is, here is a way to circumvent the decades-long weaponization of the SWIFT financial system, and then like really out of all of the information that's being presented, I think that is the most important bit.
Right. Okay, I was just curious. I just wanted to know where you guys' take was on that because, yeah, my understanding is Iran's been basically gelded. They don't even have any proper leadership. They're kind of scrambling around, and they're under threat of complete annihilation if they, I mean, let's talk about. I mean, we're not talking nukes, but I mean, like even a stronger show of military might on them if they don't just comply with peace talks. And then this comes out, like, you know, and then you got the U.S. military in the strait too, basically insuring people. So this is obvious. I think the Bitcoin part of this is what, like the narrative that's trying to get out, and then you might have the mainstream media try to vilify Bitcoin at the same time.
I agree.
So
It does seem
you're gonna have an op and then a counter op against it, right? So that's where I was trying to like piece together this and just see what your guys' thoughts were on it, and then we can move on, anyways.
Yeah,
so.
that's kind of where I'm at least right now. It seems like with all these back and forth peace deals, like something could have happened already,
Right.
or like
Yeah.
it could have been done already. And
Yeah.
there's if we do think most of this is like chess or like a show or like we kind of can have some kind of an outcome. We know the outcome. You want to tell the proper story or get the proper information out as to what you want to explain in this story.
Right.
So that's
Yeah, like
kind of.
I think the board is secured. I think the board is secured a long time before any of these operations even take place. Like, Trump didn't just go into Venezuela and cut off China's oil without China basically probably knowing about it. Maybe didn't know when they were going to do it, but he's like basically like, this is what we're going to do. And like, I don't know. I can't see them just standing back and doing nothing. You know what I mean? Not even, and they didn't even complain about it. So that's, I mean, I think the board is secured in a lot of ways that we don't know about beforehand, and we're getting the narrative they want us to hear, right? So, anyways,
at the very least, there's markers that they're going by. Like if we see this marker, Trump's going to do this, we're going to do that, or whatever, like to move this along. And even like you guys might be able to help me out on the details, but wasn't there a operation to where Russia and USA forces were real close to each other? When they were attacking ISIS, where
In Syria?
where Russia and USA couldn't technically help each other destroy this target here, but they did send coordinates like in a roundabout way. I forget the detail of that story, but like it's kind of like we have the same enemy here and we're like here together working, but like we can't be like show everyone and tell
like
everyone.
in front of everybody. Like we can't tell everybody we're working together.
Even
But
to
as
your
the world still sees it, there's still Axis powers against us, and really, like I said, why do they have to be? So,
even to your
they're
own
not ready.
militaries, like you couldn't, like Trump and Putin couldn't have told their militaries, "Hey, work together here." You can't do that, So like, they had to do it in some circumvent way, roundabout way, and I think that's kind of similar to just the narrative in general, in the big picture.
Additionally,
Speaking of ISIS, didn't Trump just kill some ISIS leader in Africa or something too, with some military strike?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, another head off a deep state asset. Like I think he's just taking them apart piece by piece here, death by 1,000 cuts. That's how I feel, and that's why I feel very optimistic going forward.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And didn't they just announce a deal that China, the United States, and Russia are going to be working on a project together?
Interesting.
I think that was yesterday that was announced. Yeah.
Yeah, the ISIS leader that was killed, the headlines at least told us was killed was Abu Bilal al-Mamluki. And he was, it was a U.S. Nigerian joint operation targeting compound in the Lake Chad Basin region.
Right.
Which is interesting because, it wasn't that long ago that somebody else brought this up, by the way, recently, that Trump was just reprimanding the Nigerian government for the slaying of Christians by the Muslim, the extreme Islamist contingent in that part. So clearly there seems to be some type of a connection there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but either way, I think it's a notable thing. And the question is, when we talk about these leaders, a lot of assumptions can be made that these are the boogeymen that are essentially spooks, right? They're sort of their puppet bad guys, right? But it's ultimately the regime operation creating these sort of terrorist, Islamist, extremist, threats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think Obama funded ISIS entirely, did he not? So through CIA or whatever. I don't know. That was
Yeah,
one of
John
the
McCain.
theories I had heard. So yeah.
Well, ISIL there,
Oh,
Ryan.
I see.
There's a big
Oh,
difference now. That they say there's a big difference, but it's not. It's the same shit.
a bunch of redheads cutting people's heads off, so they are really. So
Oh
I don't know.
yeah. Because to your point, I remember when Obama was in front of the press, and he said, "Yeah, we funded ISIL and ISIL
Training. They
reinforcements.
were
Yeah, trained, yeah." And
training them.
like, yeah, doesn't anyone else hear this or like know what that means? Apparently not, because no one said jack shit about it till like years later. And crazy shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, all right, so it's staying within the White House here, I'll say. Moving to the next topic. This week, White House Rep Patrick Witt said that a strategic Bitcoin reserve news is imminent. Now, didn't something just come out today about that? Thursday? I didn't see too much today, but I feel like I heard something, unless it was something else, but with the strict Bitcoin reserve. Anyone want to touch on this? Is this just another rug pull till we get to July? Or, I mean, Lummis is also, and her lower like secretaries and stuff like that are saying there's some big news coming as well here in the very short term. So I don't know. Does anyone want to touch on that topic?
My opinion, and it's just an opinion. They're front running Bitcoin again. They're telling the people, fucking buy it. Don't be fucking stupid, because probably on July 4th we're gonna announce it. That's why they keep dropping these, and it's just like social conditioning, like Bitcoin. Start maybe looking into it. Only got a couple months left. That's my opinion. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I feel. I feel we
Yeah.
still got a couple months yet before you
Yeah.
have to get an announcement. So
Well, that lines up to also the Senate is going on break July 4th that week. So like it's
no
gonna
kidding.
get the Senate's gonna vote on the Clarity Act that week before they go. So that's also another thing. SBR and also the Clarity Act. Here comes this July 4th theory again and date that everything is going to be voted on or announced or whatever. It just seems like, to your point, Ryan, and G even was talking about this today on Bitcoin Today. Like these people are telling you this is where we're moving to. Like we're transitioning to this,
Happening.
whether
Yeah.
you're going to be here or
are
not.
the pivot's already happened.
Yeah.
Some people still haven't jumped on the right path. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Trump just sign an executive order allowing
Yes, banks.
crypto to open like the Fed window now?
The Fed master accounts, that would allow like
Payments.
River, Kraken, any exchange to basically, have direct on ramps like a bank would have to have those accounts. So it just basically creates much more, perforation in the traditional financial system, the fiat system, for economic energy to flow into Bitcoin.
I
So
mean,
isn't that building the bridge ahead
Yeah.
of all this stuff
that's big.
beforehand?
That's big news.
Yeah,
That's
huge.
big news. Like that's the biggest news we probably got in the whole last month.
Well, this is what I think about that, is just having a technical background from back in the day. That's because, and this is just my opinion, they have to start building those rails now
Yeah.
for when they do sign it into law. It's already stood up. They're ready to go. It's already tested out.
And banks know what to do about it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because even a couple weeks ago, I think we might have touched on it a little bit, but once the Clarity Act did get passed by the Senate committee, you heard a lot of like J.P. Morgan, like the big banks were starting to hire crypto teams into their balance sheet and like to a part of their team. So like we know where the voting is going to go. I don't think that's going to be such a rug pull now. I think that's becoming less and less of a option of it being a rug pull because you got all the big banks now hiring people specifically for Bitcoin and crypto. And yeah, I just think, and to your point, you got to build that. We just can't go to it next week with no prep at all.
Right. There's no way anyone could say this isn't being built in the background right now. There's no way.
Nothing's going on, Adam. Nothing's going on.
It's just another, if you think of it too, in terms of the Hormuz safe story, it's very interesting because the SWIFT system, the current financial system, right? Obviously, the way the banks have been sort of exposed and their ability to essentially not pay interest on the funds or depositors' funds and that whole grift, right? All of that is tied back to the central banking system, and it's all being sort of disempowered right in front of us in the headline. So yeah, because you won't, and I don't know that there was a what the agreement was on the Clarity Act, what the actual outcome was, but like you just take Chase, for example. Chase offers like a 0.01% interest rate on their checking account and maybe even on their savings account. Some of these banks call their high yield savings account, accounts that aren't even paying 1% interest, high yield. And obviously, when you get into yield, we know when you start getting into STRC and you start getting into digital credit products, you've got this huge gap between what people can earn on their money. So you have that kind of coming in from one angle. And on the other side, you have just basic, right, like competition. Even in just the fiat system, like the higher end of that is typically like 3 to 3.1 or 3.2%. What you can get from something like an American Express or actually maybe not them, Capital One. Anyway, what it's doing is it's kind of, people I think they underappreciate just how big of a deal that is for banks like Chase and some of the other ones that are offering really low yields. They're basically taking that for themselves. So all of a sudden that stops. Or at least there's a rapid way for it to stop, right? Because the playing field has literally been leveled. And a big part of it has just been another form of theft, in my opinion, really, is not paying people an appropriate yield on their capital is not much better than stealing it from them. So
yeah.
Well, in Canada, we have what like ShakePay is one of our exchanges, but it acts like as an online bank. Basically, you can have a checking account, you can buy a US account, you can buy the Ethereum bullshit too, but it's mainly Bitcoin. And if you do, it acts like a bank. You can e-transfer people, you can pay your bills with it, you can have your checks direct deposited to it, and you actually get like 3% interest paid out in Bitcoin by having your checks deposited there. You know what I mean? So they don't have brick and mortar stores. It's all online. It's all in programs, I guess, or whatever, and it's on an app on your phone, and well, simple in Canada, you can get a checking account that's like 1.5 or 2%. So I had a savings account that was back at Scotiabank, that was like you had to leave it in there for a year and you'd be lucky to get 3% out of it. You know what I mean? It was like, this is just bullshit. So I don't use any of that stuff, but it was like, wow, okay, woo, 3%. And then talking about the SWIFT system, I just paid for some taxidermy when I went to New Zealand there, and I was like, hey, do you guys like take Bitcoin or anything like that? It's instant, right? And they're like, no, just SWIFT. And so you go through SWIFT, you got to pay like a $45 fee just to send it. Still takes 72 hours in this day and age with computers. It's just like, it's a dinosaur, man, and it's we don't need it. Like, it's people really need to figure out that we're way better. Bitcoin's so much better in every way. Like and they will find out. They'll just be forced into it, a lot of them. So,
well, one of the things that I think is worth mentioning here too in this topic range is, so I use Fidelity for some of my banking or my financial needs, and one of the things they have is in their CMA, which is their version of it's basically like a checking account, has like debit card associated with it.
Although all of this sounds amazing, this is not financial advice.
They have an option where, and if you have any cash there, they'll automatically put it in, I believe it's called SPAX. and it's a money market account. But the cool thing is for the end user, the user experience is it behaves just like it was a checking account. So they handle the actual selling of whatever amount of cash you withdraw from it. And if you have bill pay and you're using them for that too, it does the automatic transition. So I think a lot of this stuff is, in the future, I could see that you choose that your position for cash. You could choose maybe SATA or STRC or some other form of digital credit that pays a higher yield and then handles the sort of buying and selling of that those shares depending on how much cash you need to withdraw or use to pay bills automatically. And I could even see a product in the future where you actually have that bridge between Bitcoin, right? So this is the idea of spending your Bitcoin. Because I think it's very likely that with all the rhetoric and now even Jeff Bezos this week talking about not to change subjects about it, but I do think it's notable that people that pay the lower the 3% and lower of taxpayers essentially shouldn't even be paying taxes. And just the fact to hear him say that is it's like, yeah, of course not, right?
Yeah, it's like they're putting it into the public consciousness that
exactly.
What are you doing? This is so antiquated. Why are you paying us when we're regressively taxing you through inflation?
He knows where this is going, that you guys will not have income tax down there in the States. I guarantee that's going to happen to you guys. I can just feel it in my bones.
100%.
He's getting ahead of it, and he's going to be one of the good guys because I called this a long time ago, but he's in the know. He knows where it's going,
I think it's important that you called that point out because that's exactly what I think it is. I think it's him sharing this, what would be looked at maybe like he may not have ever said, it could be a self-preservation thing or just like, hey guys, I'm cool, I'm one of you. Whatever it is though, I think it's notable the timing of it. And I think it's very likely that this kind of information, I'm not going to get my hopes up for it or anything, but I would not be surprised if it is part of whatever is coming on the 4th. That there's kind of
Meta, I was going to say the same exact thing. I just have a feeling that is going to be like part of the independence speech, like the rededication to independence is fucking throw the tea in the ocean, bro. We're not paying taxes anymore. Period.
Yeah. I hope so, guys. For you guys, I really hope it happens because that is true liberty there. And you know what? On the Jeff Bezos thing there, he's getting ahead of things. He wants to be a good guy because come 2028, he's going to replace every worker with an Optimus robot, most likely. So you got to look like a good guy now. So
that's a good point. It's getting ahead of it.
And by the way, all you warehouse guys are fired because I've replaced you. But you don't pay income tax though. So
Speaking of that, another little side note: did you see this week Mark Cuban kissing Trump's ass? He's a fan of Trump now. He said he was wrong about him.
He also just announced that he sold his Bitcoin, so he's.
I did see that too. I did.
He said he sold his Bitcoin because it failed. I think he said
lost the plot.
Lost the plot as an inflation hedge, and it's like, well, I mean, would you get up in the middle of like a Lord of the Rings movie and leave halfway through? Like,
dude, the insane thing is retards could still be billionaires.
Yeah, he must be in the Bitcoin Today space.
I think he's in the Epstein files, and Trump made him give his Bitcoin to the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, and he's using that tool against him. There you go.
Yeah,
he's loving Trump now, so he's got some dirt on him.
That shit always seems to happen. You got the TDS. At least he might have got cured, I guess, from the TDS.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll move on here. So we have Kevin Warsh being sworn in Friday, so that is going to be tomorrow. Now, correct me here, guys. Is this in the White House that he's going to be sworn in, or is it just a normal swearing in, like of a Fed?
I believe I thought Trump was going to be doing it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard that, but I didn't. I heard that when they announced it like a week or two ago, but I haven't heard nothing recently on it. And I don't know wanted to know if I read that correctly, but that's going to be one of the first times ever, I think, as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Anyone want to talk on that?
Wow. I guess I'll start, but I'm kind of curious to see Meta's opinion on this one. I don't know where this is going. I mean, obviously everyone keeps thinking, well, he's going to cut rates because that's what Trump wants. I just don't I don't know, because he keeps talking about reducing the Fed balance sheet. And he said the Fed balance sheet is something like $7 trillion, which is just fucking insane. And it's all in risky investments. So basically, he's saying he wants it all out of this. He wants it all in low risk. He wants to be on the back page of the Wall Street Journal, like the back pages of the Wall Street Journal. They don't want to be in politics. They don't want to be front and center or top news. So I don't know what that means, and I don't know where that goes. But he definitely is pro Bitcoin. But he does say that he's pro Bitcoin in the sense of debasement of the currency. So it's a hedge against that. So that's good. But he's also very open to the fact that AI is going to change the game. And that this, I think we brought this up a week ago, where they were going to pull out the mandate of the Federal Reserve having to have maximum employment, which is also very interesting because we're shifting out of human capital. Mm-hmm. So it seems to me that they're moving into the yield space, right? Like, how do we yield off of productivity from AI and robotics, since we don't have human capital to yield off of? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking, and I don't know what that looks like. That's a massive shift, and I think all of this stuff kind of culminates together between the Clarity Act, the SBR, Trump's EO. Like, it seems like all of these. This is a major project that's been going on that has multiple spearheads that are all kind of converging at once.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to do everything that he wants to do and has said in prior years, like, you need something. It feels like Bitcoin is going to be that thing that allows him to, like, be able to raise rates without hurting anybody or fucking things up, or I don't know. Because, like, now obviously we could say, Trump put him in and he's going to do what Trump says, but we've seen that story already before because he put in Powell, and you see how that narrative finished off here the last couple of years. So, I mean, to your point, I was going to say the same thing. We got all this different avenues meeting on the same street here, pretty much within the same year and same time frame. We've been seeing it here the last couple of years plus, and I don't know if we can really grasp that this might be like the pivotal moment to where, like, you look back 10 years and say, summer of 26 was one of the biggest deals around for us.
The New Jekyll Island. Yeah. Maybe it's the good one.
But that's why they got it.
Sorry. Just one last point here. So, Krash, you were talking about Bitcoin being kind of like the pressure release valve, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, didn't Mark Moss do a video about this almost a year ago, talking about how current pricing, like, so using housing as a perfect example, like, I don't think housing is going to really go much less right now until AI really disrupts that. But in the meantime, if all this extra printing to kind of get everyone back to a parity to where they could even afford the American dream, you have to be able to have a pressure release valve to absorb all of that extra printing without disrupting goods and services. So technically, Bitcoin isn't a good and service. It is a store of wealth that has a finite supply that will only inflate in terms of dollars, which then can translate to the reduction of asset prices such as real estate, because you basically triple, quadrupled your money just sitting in this one asset that can then convert. And right now, 5 Bitcoin buys you the average house right now.
Well, and I think too, they just passed, or Trump signed an executive order. They just passed something to where, like, no big banks or big corporations can buy real estate, or like home, or like like home for families, like that kind of real estate, houses and shit. And I think that's a bigger point there, because that's where that release valve is going to come in too. Because, like, how you say, how you going to keep these houses at plateau at level, at least, if not depreciate. And that I think is going to be one of the big things to like really back away because people are going to look at gold and metals and stuff and say, yeah, this is cool. I'll put money here. But most people are going to be like, nah, this isn't the best way to preserve.
People are pissed off at Trump because he's like, well, I can't drop home prices because the boomers, they're like, they have never had this kind of wealth before in their life. It's all sitting in their homes. Like, I can't just destroy that and fuck that entire segment of the population.
For decades, real estate has been your only real store of wealth, right?
Right.
Until Bitcoin came along. So
right.
Everybody stored it in that. 90% of people would store their money in real estate. They wouldn't store it in gold or silver. I mean, you get some people that are getting into that now because of certain podcasts pushing it and whatever, but it's, most people didn't. It was
you can't put millions of dollars, no matter how much you love metals, like physically, you can't put millions and millions of dollars in it.
No.
And
think of the security you'd have to pay just to keep it safe. You know what I mean? Like, you'd have to have some kind of brick and steel building and security guys watching it. I mean,
that's the thing.
Money, it's like, where are you going to keep it?
Yeah, so, you can't protect it yourself. Like, is that even true self-custody then of that asset? Like,
If you want to escape the matrix, you need Bitcoin.
You got to look at all these different asset classes and types as essentially just containers for wealth, and you can redirect a lot of anytime. That's why typically when the rates are lowered, right, you have lower cost of capital, and the people that are closest or furthest upstream, the Cantillon effect is a real thing, right? They can buy real world assets, which most of the time you see in the S&P and the NASDAQ, the Qs. The other thing too you got to consider is now the NASDAQ, or I'm sorry, the S&P and just the stock market in general is mostly represented by the Max 7, right? That's the majority of it.
Yep.
And with SpaceX launching, I just saw somebody made this comment, and it fits with this narrative that they've got the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they're also going to be valued at, I'm sure, a massive amount. So there's going to become the Mag 8. And I think that going back to your comment, Krash, about disrupting wealth, well, what if the housing market, which is probably the worst place for the average person to have that wealth store in, and again, going back to the theme of these property companies that own huge portfolios of rental properties, and sometimes just empty properties, right? Because for them, they're just looking for a place to park that capital. That's a big sort of customer for this sort of event, right? Because there's also regulations in what some of these entities can and can't hold. By the way, going back to the gold comment, I think a lot of the gold is held, when you measure the entire gold market, a huge chunk of that is in paper.
ETFs. Even the biggest gold bug, Peter Schiff, most of his shit's in the paper.
Yeah, well, because you're right. There's a massive cost associated with and then you give up one of the biggest supposed attributes of it as soon as it's vaulted by somebody else, because you can't possibly guard it yourself. If you have to have a security force, you're actually adding a type of counterparty risk, right? Because one of these guys might be an insider, and we've all seen the Italian Job, right? So but
there's way more paper gold than there is real gold too. So
way more.
Paper.
That's
everybody cashed in. The bank run would be it would destroy them all, right? So
that said, in the near term, though, I would almost like the paper gold or ETFs has followed the market and the market price, and if you were to look at it in fiat terms, you set aside all the disadvantages of having paper gold, like the fact that it's not actually backed by that physical amount. There's no way it possibly could be. But if you're just looking at it through the fiat lens, then you'd be much better off with it, right? So, but this sort of restructuring that's happening, it's just like, I think, repiping it, and it comes back to the Bitcoin is the only asset class in the asset. And you could also look at Bitcoin treasuries as sort of proxies of the overall Bitcoin bucket, that you can divert a huge amount of that additional liquidity into those containers and not disrupt, and then also sort of continue to pump the stock market, right? Which will offset the losses of any, older sort of boomer age range people if the real estate market were to sort of, let's just call it calibrate, right? Like maybe drop to its actual value as a utility and not as a bank account or some type of an asset that has to appreciate. Uh, that's my hope, is that that's how it plays out, and that it's not an overnight event, that it happens over the course of years, um, and that way there's as little disruption as possible, and people aren't jumping off of buildings and killing themselves because they're watching the nominal value of their asset portfolio crash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Well, you know what? SpaceX coming out with this 18K in Bitcoin holdings on BitcoinTreasuries.net. That actually puts them in sixth place. And
Wow.
Yeah,
ahead of, they actually hold more than Coinbase does. So
How much does Strive holding now? What's their
Strive
count?
actually is they're ahead of Strive. Strive's only got 15,391 according
Okay.
to this website. I don't know if it's updated because SpaceX isn't updated on this website either. I just refreshed it. So, but Strategy holds out of all the companies. There's 1,243,000 and change coins on the like held by every company of these, all the public companies,
Wow.
and Strategy owns like what, like three quarters of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
850,000, something like
like
that.
unbelievable. One company has
Well,
three quarters
so
of everybody's Bitcoin.
Well, BlackRock has 840,000,
It's
and
not real Bitcoin though. They're not even listed on here.
Well,
Yeah.
it's all the customers. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily BlackRock itself.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
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 But aren't
Um,
they custodied under their
Coin-
ETF though through
Yeah,
Coinbase?
Coinbase.
Yeah.
But they right, so BlackRock they created the ETF, and then the ETF is backed by the Bitcoin that is custodied by Coinbase. Um, but that is when people talk about BlackRock buying and selling Bitcoin, it is kind of misleading, right? Because it's not actually them. I don't even know if BlackRock proper holds an amount of their own ETF or
Right.
actual physical
Good
bit, or
point.
not physical, but spot Bitcoin.
yeah, that's how I always took it too, Meta. Like it's not them actually buying it themselves and putting it on their balance sheet as far
Yeah.
as like for them. Um, but yeah, since we brought up SpaceX here, they just announced that Elon just announced that they have 18,000 on their balance sheet and worth about 1.4 billion for SpaceX. Now that is totally different than from Tesla, then, correct?
Tesla has 11,509.
Okay.
That's wild, though. So
Wow.
SpaceX
Wow.
basically secured that position in Bitcoin at some point in the last however many years.
Quietly.
Quietly, yeah, right. Like that was never known. Nobody ever talked about it, and all of a sudden, boom, we've got this on our balance sheet.
Well, can you kind of put us in the time frame of when SpaceX like announced, like when could they have started this accumulation? When proper could they have
I,
started?
I, I mean, if I was just to take a swing at it, I'd say,
Yeah.
well, considering the thing that they have in common with Tesla is Elon Musk, that I would imagine maybe it was around the same time. Maybe all of
Yeah.
the Elon Musk's companies have some degree of, I don't know if Boring has any plans to go public, or any of the other ones.
That's what I was thinking too, around the time when Tesla added to their balance sheet. I'm guessing it's probably similar time frame for SpaceX then too. So,
Yeah, because if Elon has known what's going on, if he's got that inside information, or even if it's just he knew and he's not a part of it, he's not read in or anything, but he just understands what Bitcoin actually is, and let's just give the things as they appear on the surface the benefit of the doubt and say that that's what it actually is, then you could see from his perspective that he would be looking at that as potential for a sort of funding mechanism slash economic engine for any company. Would be smart to have that on the balance sheet, right? Because you just do the 18 to 36-month math on it,
mhm.
and you're in a much better spot, which is exactly how most enterprises run, right? Like it's their balance sheet is their economic engine.
And protection from AI there, Meta, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an
Not,
excellent point. It should be understated.
not to mention, Elon's the one who said the future currency is going to be energy, right? So
Yes.
it's not like he doesn't
Bitcoin
know.
is my safe word. Yeah.
Exactly.
That might have been when he just started buying. Who knows? You know?
Yeah, I would
And
imagine that was a pretty good price point then too, because that was what, a couple years ago, right? At
Mhm.
least. Hmm.
oh yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think it was 3 years ago when he said that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And that's just more signal for people that are watching and taking notes. So,
Well, that's just it. Now they're coming into their IPO or whatever you call it. They're going public, right? So
mhm.
I don't, you
Yeah.
know, it's just another Bitcoin exposure. Like, hello, people, are you paying attention yet? Like, they're
Coming
slapping you
up.
in the face with the freaking Bitcoin almost daily, and you get people that still argue with you about it. So I don't even talk about it anymore on to my
Ryan,
people.
Ryan,
You know?
nothing's happening, man. Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Uh,
Speaking of nothing happened, let's move it on here to micro or to strategy and also Strive. So Sata's been at par like all week this week, still like a week or two out from X date. This is crazy. We never seen this from Sata at least. And now this is Thursday here. They already added 500 Bitcoin the past couple days. And now today, Thursday, they already accumulated 175. So we're going to
Jeez.
probably be looking for this week alone. We're probably going to be looking at close to 1,000 Bitcoin. Um, it crazy shit, crazy. And Meta,
it
I
is
know you
crazy.
you brought this up a week or two ago. How like when you watch this Stretch live ticker and see them accumulating these two digit Stretch and Sata, these two credit instruments, it is mind boggling. The more I sit here, like every day, I do sit here and like, at least check in on it, and it does blow my mind as well, especially how Sata unlocked something with this daily. Now that we have like a week to think on that, does that daily dividends like I think Jeff might have undersold it even a little bit, how this changes everything. So
Well,
like, yeah, go ahead,
I
Meta.
can give you. I've been thinking about it a lot, right? So I told Krash before you guys joined that I had kind of made some moves in the portfolio this week, mostly just kind of wound down my STRC position because I thought the timing felt right and I wanted to start increasing my essentially my exposure to Bitcoin more than it already is. And I do still think it's possible we go lower, but I think if we do see one more leg down, I think that's about it. So I'm willing to say, okay, this is a good. I think anything under say 80K is probably good. You're not going to time the bottom exactly. So because I was doing that, I started thinking about, okay, how am I going to distribute this? And I can't, and I also already locked in because I sold after the ex-div date. So I've already got the STRC distribution coming on the first. And at that point, if I build up a new position, I just started really considering like, why would I not just go into SATA because I like the optionality of the daily distributions and I like the ability to jump in and out of it. And I also like the sort of idea that it could really stabilize, how far it drifts from par will be minimized, right, because of that.
Mhm.
So I just started thinking like, well, and I also feel like if you set up some stop losses and things like that, like you could really, run the spread operation on margin with SATA because you're harvesting the distributions in a near real time, a 24-hour delay essentially, and then no weekends. Um, and so your risk every time you get a distribution is eroding whatever the price may fluctuate by as time goes on. So that operation seems like it's a better asset to do it with instead of STRC. Now STRC obviously is going to have its benefits, right? It's way more volume. I think it has a much higher likelihood of hitting higher credit rating
Mhm.
in the near term, which would mean that it would be a much bigger it'd be more appealing to margin, holding
Yeah.
as a margin collateral.
Yeah, it's been around longer. I think it's
Yeah.
more collateralized as well.
Oh,
Like,
no doubt.
yeah, so like there are perks for like your normie, like how we were talking earlier this week, Meta. Like there's your perks for stretch for the normie person. Like that's like, oh no, I'm going stretch. I don't care about Sata's too like Stride's too risky. They don't have all the fundamentals like stretch does. They're just too big to fail, if you will. Maybe that's a better term for that. For your Bitcoin owner, but like to us, like we know what Strive is. We know how good they are and proactive they are, and like with Sata and stuff. So like we're used to it. So, like Sata to me, that's no more real risky in my eyes anyway than stretch.
Well, yeah, and you got to consider that because of the size of Strive at the moment, I think you've got more potential growth because you're dealing with smaller numbers, right?
Oh yeah,
Overall.
yeah. For the
So,
common, yeah, no doubt.
right, for the common and just the company's overall balance sheet health, the fact that they're no longer in debt. There's a lot of really interesting things about that if you start looking at it through the lens of amplified Bitcoin exposure. The other thing to consider, I know we've talked about this, but if you move, let's say you had $100,000 that you were borrowing on margin to buy uh, SATA and to run that operation I was talking about, then consider that you get the distribution, you hold it on a day, and you get the distribution the next day. But then when you hit the ex-div date for STRC, which is moving to, of course, biweekly, you just rotate that margin out of SATA completely and into STRC. And if you're doing the math on that over the longer term, because you're getting the daily distribution, you're minimizing the amount of risk you have in the price movements between the ex-div and the actual payment date on STRC. So that strategy now, I'm hearing myself talking for some reason. Somebody's speakers. Anyway, the point is like I've been thinking a lot about that, and yeah, I'm trying to come up with reasons not to do it. Like maybe it's stupid, or maybe it can't be that simple. I don't know. I'm kind of throwing it out there to you guys to say,
Yeah,
well, maybe this isn't a smart idea, because it is definitely, it's all margin, which increases the risk exponentially, right? In doing something like this.
right. Yeah, I mean, if you're that, depending how much you have, obviously the ROC, rock dividends, like return of capital, would be a big
Mhm.
deal. But I mean, if you're just playing with that, I mean, I say little bit, 100 grand, is it that big of a deal then? Like, it might be worth switching it over, like how you present. Maybe, yeah.
I don't know what the effective yield would be, but like just doing loose math on it, it would be somewhere between 11 and a half plus 13.
Hmm.
So you got 24 and a half there, but because you're going to be losing some in the sort of days where you're trading in and out, I think it'll end up being somewhere between 20 and 21% or so.
Okay.
Um, but of course, there's always like what could go wrong, right? You could see some slippage in price. You could buy STRC in the to get the distribution, and it could drop $2 or $3 a share, and that could eat up all your
Well,
profit.
yeah, I guess that's possible. But even with going to biweekly dividends here now, that's going to be even way less likely. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. But I mean, anything's possible, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I want you to keep us
Heck, to try
updated
it,
on
like
that.
just try it out with like 10 shares for a month and just see what happens.
Yeah, I was thinking that because that's kind of how I started dabbling in STRC before I moved a decent chunk into it.
Hmm.
Um, and I gave up on my ROC, benefits. Well, different reasons I won't say, but I didn't care much about that anyway,
Right, right.
for me personally. But um, so yeah, you are giving that up, and I wouldn't recommend somebody who's retired, start doing this kind of funny business. But if you look at it through the lens of this is my cash position, I'm really just trying to not lose portfolio value with this chunk of my portfolio, then it makes sense because it's like you're getting a yield on somebody else's money, and
Hmm.
you're essentially making a spread of about, on average 18 to 20%, which is
Yeah.
great. So,
Yeah. Yeah. A little cheat code there, possibly.
Well, I was thinking about that. So the game changer of the daily dividend is, if you're using Robinhood, you see your daily maintenance cost, and then you can figure out, okay, what purchase do I need in Sata to cover my daily maintenance cost plus whatever your interest cost is to just pick up that Sata position and just offset margin costs altogether,
mhm.
and then just really use your margin for growth and income.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that. That is the
yeah.
goal, pretty much at the end of the day. Borrow for free. Even though,
Well, a
yeah.
$100,000 of margin costs you $4,500 a year is the way to break it down. So
Okay.
anything above that $4,500 is all
How do you
profit.
have to pay that? How do you have to pay that $4,500?
They
Is it
they
monthly?
take it out. Yeah, they take it out every 30 days, and they show you what your daily amount is that's accruing. So I just got hit with one.
So where do they
Um,
take it out of though? Like,
they what they do is they essentially add it to your overall margin, right? So it comes out of the individual account. The individual account is a combination of any cash you may or may not hold, combined with margin, your buying power essentially. So it
okay.
Uh,
just gets billed to that
uh,
automatically anyway.
Can
yeah, I
you
was
put
wondering.
money from an outside income source in to cover that or pay that?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's all it does. If like you're using, like right now I'm using I don't know, like 14 grand of margin. So if I deposited $14,000, it would just zero me out and it would increase my purchasing power.
Oh, so you can't just put in the minimum payment from an outside source. Do you have to
Yeah.
pay out
Well,
the?
yeah, you could technically. Just a different way of thinking about it. Like let's say they charge me $100 of interest in a
Yeah,
month and then I deposited $100. That's essentially what I'd be doing.
right. So that way
I'd
you could
be
still
Yeah.
use their full amount to your
Yep.
benefit, but just making $100 payment or something, and then out from outside income.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Or you could transfer one of your divvies into that account and
Hmm.
pay it that way,
Well,
right?
that's what makes Robinhood so great is because they do all of that for you because your distributions hit that same individual cash, technically, a combination of margin availability and that. They automatically get deposited. So that's what's so nice about it is you don't have to like send money to some outside lender. If you have all of your debt and it's being essentially managed in your as margin debt, then your distributions are automatically paying that debt down for you. So
Yeah.
then it's just a game of do you have enough inflows coming in to cover your cost of capital and any other bills that are hitting or any other buys you're making. Um, you want to get to a point where you've got a surplus of inbound distributions that exceed your output essentially.
Hmm.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's more or less. I'm starting to think of it since I'm using P-locks now. It is just a P-lock, just with way less steps. uh,
Yeah.
to be able to pay it off or whatever, or to bring it down or pay it. Yeah, I mean, it
The
is. Yeah.
the only negative, so here's the thing with margin in general, because I know we talk about this every week, but it's very good if anybody's listening to this to understand that this is if you can be responsible, it is an incredible life hack and enhancement to your existing financial situation. And it could help a lot of people. The problem is a lot of people really are miserable at managing their finances. They're just terrible at it. And the key really is, and you can get burned obviously because you have that margin maintenance level, and then you've got your portfolio composition and all these other things that could, you want to avoid getting called because you don't want to have to sell at a loss. So, but when you look at it through the lens of, um, a portfolio that doesn't fluctuate enough in value where it would ever put you in a position to be liquidated or margin called, then you really just have this amplification of purchasing power, and that could be applied to anything you want. So, like what Krash is doing is he's just basically going to another outside lender, getting additional funds that he can go and buy assets with, right? As soon as he has those assets in his portfolio, he gets access to more margin because you get a multiple back as far as margin, and he just takes that low interest, flexible margin loan structure, and he just pays the person a line of credit off. And so anywhere you can get that, and I mean, I could run it with American Express. You could do it with your car loan. Now, you got to also think about in terms of like, does it really make a difference that you're paying to service your car loan? Like, how much of a dollar amount is it? But in scenarios where you have personal loan that's structured, a non-collateralized personal loan that has a very aggressive payment schedule because that's how they offset the risk of it being non-collateralized, you end up with a much higher payment than you would if you were to absorb that with a margin loan. So margin loans they're beautiful because they give you the optionality to pay essentially as little as just the cost of capital amount to service the debt.
Meta. So I think about your analogy. I think you called it a financial battery to where it smooths out the energy collection, right? So if like you have a month where you're short on income and you need an extra $1,000, well, you got it in margin, and your margin is essentially just kind of keeping you steady, so your lifestyle doesn't have to change, or you don't have to like make some sacrifices that month to cover it because the following month is going to cover it, and it just becomes that battery that smooths out your life to where you're not having to sacrifice, but you have access to essentially cheap capital to just be there for you every time you need it.
Yeah, I mean, it's currently what most people are doing with credit cards. The problem with those is as soon as you carry the previous month's spending over a month, you're paying. Sometimes, like my brother, he's got a Lowe's credit card that he's been carrying a balance on for a while, and the interest rate's up to 37%. When you start looking at it through that lens, that's what most Americans are doing. So yeah, I mean, and I would even go back to what you were just saying, Adam. I said it like, yeah, for months where you maybe come up a little short based on your income. And with us, I mean, if you're living completely off of your portfolio, exactly, the last year has been a terrible run, in some of the more Bitcoin adjacent assets. But not if you made the right move. Like, for example, I don't know what Francis did, but if you jumped into Chippy at the right point, or you just have the overall diversity in your portfolio, or you fast forward 18 months from now and you look at Bitcoin and its CAGR that it's been performing at over the last 10 years, you're going to be in a situation where you're probably never going to have to worry about it again. And essentially, your lifestyle could change if you wanted it to, because you would have access to a lot more capital. And if you're doing the income thing, you'll probably be getting a lot more income as well. But the point is that right now, it's not even just that you can come up short for 1 month. You could come up short for an entire year. And you're only, I mean, if let's say you're between 1,000 to 2,000, you're adding $24,000 to your overall margin, which is like, oh no, what a big deal. But it's like, yeah, but if you've got like a portfolio that's like 60% Bitcoin and Bitcoin treasury companies, you're going to see like your portfolio is probably going to triple, maybe quadruple in a 2-year time frame, right? Like, if we're being conservative, it might not. There's always risk, but like based on everything else we just talked about, the bet is Bitcoin swallowing the entire system as it is and repricing everything. So I don't know. I feel like if you're wrong about that underlying bet, then it doesn't matter. You would have been fucked anyway.
Yeah. Well, Meta, it took me forever to understand this because I was super scared of it. But now that I'm getting it, and there's still so much more to learn too. It truly is a life hack. It's unbelievable. And then if you can float credit cards before that and then float margin, between the two, you're floating yourself 3 months before you're ever even paying $1.
Yep. If you can figure out a way to pay, if you're fortunate enough to be a high class citizen and you have the actual Robinhood Gold card, or even if you wanted to like seriously credit card max and use American Express's Blue Preferred Cash for groceries, you get 6% back on that. And you wanted to use 4%, you get 4% back on Gemini cards. That can be your gas card or your charging if you have a Cybertruck or an EV. You get 4% on that, and then you have 3% for everything else you spend. By the time you factor that in, and you're also exploiting Robinhood's low interest, low margin rates, and you immediately pay off your credit card balances with margin, and then that gets replenished by your income from your distributions. I think you've basically completely, from a consumer average person perspective, you've completely exploited the bullshit fiat system to the maximum. If you take advantage of all of those
man.
things.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Now
I got to get there. That's where I'm still on the learning curve where Adam felt like probably a while ago. So, but I'm gonna enjoy the life hack soon with your guys' help. I'm just gonna get my brain wrapped around it all for sure. So.
And you shouldn't until you feel comfortable, until you
Yeah,
completely
I'm in no
understand what
rush.
you're doing. Yeah.
Just when I see the prices so low, like the other day, I was like, "Damn, I could probably use some of that right now." But whatever.
Ryan, we should probably have just a round table with all of us, just Q&A together, maybe just not recorded, and just
Yeah,
go
I'd love to do that, and I'd actually even show you guys some like some scenarios that I'm thinking. Is this a good move, or like what would you guys do, or whatever? And then let's talk about that later sometime for sure. I'd appreciate that.
yeah. Yeah.
Sorry if I went off too far into margin territory. It's
Well,
one
no.
of my favorite things to talk about because
it's huge.
I'm also kind of bouncing things off of other people that are doing this. And if I step on a landmine anywhere and one of you guys happens to see something I'm suggesting or hear it that doesn't jive with what you're thinking, then I want to know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I agree, because we always try to talk about this every week on some level, but in some weeks I'm like, we didn't really touch on it nearly as much as I kind of wanted to, so like it's totally cool and it's important as well. But let me throw this at you, man, because Francis asked me this week and I wasn't too familiar with Lendin, LEDN, and because I was telling him about the PLOC experiment operation. And he was like, could you technically run the PLOC with Ledin too?
Yes. Well, you could do it with Morpho as well.
Okay. All right.
But here's the problem with any Bitcoin-backed loans is they all have liquidation risk. And the problem with Bitcoin is you can have a candle wick that liquidates you. And I don't like that. I would rather be inside of like with Robinhood, you still have the margin call risk, but it's not this like automatic thing that happens. Now, Ledin does have some features in place where you can basically put more Bitcoin up there than you're actually using as collateral. But I did it with well, do you guys want to know exactly? I'll tell you exactly what I did with the Morpho loan on Coinbase, because the reason I used Coinbase was they had a much lower interest rate. It's a DeFi protocol, Morpho.
Yeah, if you want to tell the story, man, go ahead.
Yeah, so I basically took a personal loan, and the personal loan, they don't want you buying securities. So the idea that if you're going to follow the rules, technically they could consider it. I think it's a form of loan fraud if you took that money and immediately went and bought like Misty with it. But I went and bought Bitcoin with it, which is a commodity, right? So it's not a security. There's no conditions for that. And then what I did was I took that Bitcoin and I used that Bitcoin as my Morpho loan collateral, and I took half of. I'm not telling anybody to do this, right? I did this knowing what I was doing had a sort of an air of degen, okay? Like I was essentially adding leverage by doing that. And then I took that chunk of half of the Bitcoin that I bought and I went and bought securities with it. Now, I don't know if there's some roundabout way that would be violating whatever you agree to when you get a personal loan, but that's what I did. Anyway, point is, I then I was watching Morpho, and I did this when Bitcoin was at about 100K. So the problem is, you guys may have, obviously, we've just been through what nobody thought at the time that we were going to go as low as we did. So I did avoid that because I basically took, the way I did it was I took Robinhood allows, for a while they were allowing a withdrawal of up to $5,000 a day. And the way that you pay back your Morpho loans, that $20,000 balance, is using USDC. So what I did was I just took out that chunks of USDC on my Robinhood margin, I had other funds that were in Robinhood too, so that I had enough margin room to do that. And then I released my Bitcoin. And then I took that Bitcoin that I never had any of this money, right? Like this is all starting off from me getting a non-collateralized personal loan.
Mm-hmm.
I then sold that Bitcoin at a loss on Robinhood, and I just took the funds from it that paid off some of the USDC that I used to pay back the Morpho loan, and I bought BTCI with it. So essentially, and I ended up I did the math that if I would have just taken the personal loan and bought that amount of BTCI, I ended up with more shares of BTCI after the fact. So I didn't even feel bad about the Bitcoin dropping in value. Now, this is where it gets really funny, because then once I had the BTCI inside of Robinhood, I could go back and buy spot Bitcoin and remove it from Robinhood.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, I figured a lot of this stuff out, and I did kind of like I added a little bit of money here and there, but the gist of it is that I essentially did a much more elaborate version of what Krash is doing with his personal line of credit, because essentially what he's doing is he's expanding the size of his portfolio,
Right.
which gives them more access to, right? Now, the only tricky part is, and until you can get a lower maintenance on something like a SATA or an STRC, is you can run the risk of your portfolio shrinking by the amount that you borrowed pretty rapidly. It's with amounts that low, right? Like your portfolio, the bigger it gets, it can move by bigger swings way more easy than
Mm-hmm.
you might
Right.
imagine. So
You want to fight? You'll never take my Bitcoin. Like, share, subscribe to Frogs and Friends.
that's one other thing I've learned, is that, you can go from being 60% healthy from a margin usage perspective down to 50 in a few days of crashing pretty easily when you're dealing with some volatile assets. So,
Yeah.
but
Especially
the
when you're have way more like Misty and like the bigger shit, or like the more volatile shit.
Misty and MSTR have turned out to be the absolute worst
Yes.
assets you can use for collateral. But the problem is, if they're part of your portfolio, my remedy to that has been to shrink the percentage of my portfolio
Correct.
that's in,
Yeah.
Yep.
because and then also, play around with diversification as a mechanism for not triggering a margin call. Not because I want to speculate in the stock market. I think stonks are gay, and I think there's only one real, money, and I think it's Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, this is I'm running this like a business.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've run a lot of scenarios, and I've made some mistakes that I think will be smoothed out by. Let's put it this way. I've been investing for years, and I've made some bad calls. And when I initially got into crypto, I bought shitcoins. I bought more shitcoins than anybody has any business buying. And I lost my ass on a lot of them, as I should have. And the one thing that saved me throughout my learning experience was the amount of Bitcoin that I bought has basically swallowed most of my losses. Well, no, actually, I shouldn't say most, all, and then some. Any other bad decisions from an investing perspective. Maybe one day I'll tell you about the mining operation I was a partner in, and how wrong that went. That was just a lesson in counterparty risk. But
And
overall, I mean, and here's another thing. I also, all the talk about Prime Trust in the news. They're going after. They were basically the custodian for Strike, for Swan.
okay.
Well, they also were the custodian for what was the name of that damn Elba? Damn it. Anyway, there was another. That was where I was holding some of my portfolio, and I got out 8 months before the entire collapse, and so I basically saw some warning signs that Swan ended up seeing about 90 days before. And I think they started sharing, all of them, Strike and the others, they all started pulling their customers' Bitcoin out of Prime Trust.
Yeah.
And that's why Prime Trust is trying to kind of go big. So, like, point is like that whole time period between like 2020 and 2023, there were a lot of lessons to be learned. There was the Celsius issue. There's a lot of people that got burned by that. I think it's all kind of related, but
yeah, Meta.
yeah.
To your point, and that's why I think everyone that I've seen anyway, really emphasize and recommend you having more than enough cold storage to do any of these projects, these side projects here, or these income funds and stuff like that, based on just that story alone, Meta.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake with your portfolio and you do somehow lose everything, if you were too aggressive or whatever, um, it's not going to kill you. At the end of the day, it's not going to change your life, if you will.
Well, it won't. And the thing is, that's the key is, right? If you don't have enough Bitcoin to do what you're imagining doing today, that means you just have to wait a little longer. Because eventually the Bitcoin you do have will be able to do it. And that's the thing I've learned is that, that CJ Constantinos tells that story about how he had to buy his family a house and he sold 100 Bitcoin, I think he did, is what it was, to buy the house. And he calls it like the $15 million mistake at today's prices. And that's the whole premise of it, which going back to the comment about, using leaden or something like that, or more for one of these, I think makes a lot more sense to use if People's Reserve launches, and they're supposed to launch on the 4th, ironically, they don't have liquidation risk.
Yeah, well, and I was gonna say that too. I think Jack Muller said strike when you do a line of credit against your Bitcoin. I don't think he has. I think they got rid of the liquidation as well.
If that's the case, I would be like, okay, I'd be interested in hearing about that. But the other problem with them is a lot of the rates that you see from Strike.
Yeah.
The non-DeFi ones, they're all double-digit and up interest rates.
Yeah.
I think you can get as low as like maybe 9. There's also Salt, which I looked a little bit into, and then there's the other one. I just downloaded the app, and I've got an account, but I haven't used it. And they raised their rates. The one that Anthony Pompliano invested in. I can't remember. They had the. I shared it with you and Francis back in the day, like a few months ago.
Okay.
They had a 5% rate, I think, at one point, and I think they just increased it. I think it's now at about 7, and they have like a Bitcoin line of credit, and they do have some of the features that Ledin has. But again, I think there's counterparty risk, and they supposedly say that they account for that, the way that it's custodied and all that stuff. I'm just not comfortable with it. I'm actually more comfortable. This is another reason why at this stage I'm building the sort of more of the portfolio, and using proxies like IBIT or BTCI instead of adding to spot, because I know that and this is different for everybody, but if you have a decent amount of spot Bitcoin, then there's really no, like, you already kind of have that long time preference baked
that
into
safety
your
net
strategy. Yeah, right. So
yeah, and that's even when we first started talking about this a year plus ago, Meta. When you kind of said that, like when you presented it in those words, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. Let's go. like that changed my whole debt outlook and using debt for this kind of thing. And that really started the ball rolling as far as the debt is concerned for these portfolios. So yeah, I mean that's a great way. Great way to do it. And yeah, obviously IBIT, yeah, we talk shit on IBIT, but as far as margin and portfolio purposes, Robinhood doesn't account for spot Bitcoin towards your portfolio value as far as margin buffer and anything. It's just like pulling cash out when you buy anything spot, any crypto really, but like Bitcoin, because obviously we buy Bitcoin. But yeah, and that always confused us, like right from the start. And then we found out, oh yeah, why don't we just do IBIT? Like that totally changed the game for me anyway, as far as playing.
Oh, that changed it for me too. Like
Mhm.
night and day, game changing.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a nice little thing. And Adam or Meta, do you guys want to kind of touch on like how big of a deal? Like we did kind of touch on like the daily dividends from Sata, but not necessarily on the margin sense. I don't think we really touched on it too much. Coming like obviously like we're using round big numbers here. If you put $1 million in Sata, you get like $360 a day at 13% where it's at now. Like that changes everything here if you're a margin user. The stability of the preferred of what you're holding, even at 50% maintenance, that still changes everything when you're bringing in $300+ a day into your account to keep added into either iBid or back into Sata or whatever, something in the 25% maintenance realm. That to me, that's just you got the cheat code on hyperdrive, on hyperspeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done any like math on it myself, but I can see the benefit of if your portfolio gets to a big enough size, and I think we all hope one day that we can hold $1 million position in our and maybe in something like a SATA. The question is right now, I actually think it's a bad idea. If you had $1 million and you didn't put it into spot Bitcoin right now, I would just assume that that's because you're a whale and you have a shitload of spot Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then if you did have enough spot Bitcoin where you felt comfortable that you had more than you'd ever need to support your lifestyle and leave your offspring the generational wealth that you've accumulated, I would say, well, then I would allocate that $1 million to a portfolio structure that leaned very heavily on Bitcoin and Bitcoin proxies, and I'd probably put more of it into those that have much better maintenance ratios, and I'd have a portion of it in SATA and probably STRC as well, and then I would also use like half of my available margin and add more STRC and SATA to it to then sort of blunt or diminish the effects of the overall portfolio value moving a lot. Keep it sort of more stable and a mean.
Yeah. I think does the daily dividend, I think to me it makes it feel like it's more of a growth vehicle now than
Yeah,
than than it
that's a
than
good
it
way to look at
was.
it.
Than it was. I don't know, just yeah, the compounding's quicker. So like you're obviously getting growth, and then to your point, I think like if you can move, I think could you like I think the idea at the end of the day is to have like a lot of your margin on something like a stretch or SATA, but in this example, SATA because daily dividends super safe, Sharp ratio and such like that, and it just compounds that much faster, and it's going to grow that margin potential as well. And that is the end goal here because that's how you obviously make your life even a little bit better. So like who doesn't want more potential in their portfolio? And because you don't want to be in all strive. Like us, yeah, we're retired, we do. But like your normal person, like MSTR and Strive and stuff, like that's way too volatile for them to put anything on margin with that. And I think Sata kind of bridges that with that daily dividend a little bit. Now in the long run, and like if you're looking big enough, yeah, it's obviously gonna Strive's way gonna outperform Sata on any level. But I don't know, kind of just for the normal person. I don't know.
Yeah, so like Krash, the way I think about this is there's two types of investors. There's the growth investor and then there's the wealth preservation investor.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're all kind of young, so we really just need to grow our wealth and the yield. So like if I took $1 million and put it in Sata versus I don't know, let's just say Misty or Chippy or Tizzy or whatever, I'm going to get way more of a return off of Chippy, Misty, and Tizzy than I am from Sata.
Right.
Well, like for me, because I'm younger, I would want to go more growth because I don't fully have the wealth number I need to preserve. So, but I look at it differently as in using those tools like Strike or Stretch and Sata as vehicles to pay for my margin costs.
Mm-hmm.
And then but you would take someone like my parents they would be perfectly fine just sitting in Stretch or Sata, whatever they own, right? And I think it would make sense. They're preserved. They're making a great yield. It's definitely beating Social Security. It's definitely beating, whatever they're getting paid, currently, whatever their retirement strategy is. So, like, I just think if you think of it in those terms, it kind of simplifies who needs it. Number one, but if you're in a growth and you're in the growth phase, then you could look at it as just paying to get free money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. But I think I'm just when I'm telling Sata here with the daily dividends, I think it's just a little bit of a touch of growth because of how quick the return comes back to you to be able to do with whatever you want with those
because it
dividends.
keeps paying down your margin balance, right?
Yeah, because like obviously like we brought up on the portfolio or whatever, like with these daily dividends now with Sata, you get your investment back in like 4.5 years now compared to what was it before when they did monthly, like 7+ years. So like in a roundabout, just in a different way, that's growth then, because you just doubled what you could do. So that if you just reinvested that in 8 years, you got the same amount as you would have getting it paid monthly, doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, assuming you're not pulling anything out and it's just dripping back in.
Yeah.
You're just paying off your initial investments.
So in a roundabout way, that's a growth as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I mean, we're just very splitting hairs there, but like it just opens the optionality and the maneuverability with what Sata's doing now with these daily dividends. So yeah, I mean, I think is that the last topic here that we have for today. Anyone want to finish off with a final word?
Yeah, real quick, just before we do that, the company I was talking about was Lava, and their website is lava.xyz, and currently their fixed borrowing rate is at 6.5 to 7.5. And you guys can explore that for yourself. And then you have they charge a fee though on whatever the amount is, so they have a 2% sort of vig that they make on it
every month. Or like every payment? Okay.
No, I think I think they just, I think so. I think it's like the total amount you borrow and 2% of it is what they take. So you essentially, it's 9.5%. So I think the range is based on the amount you borrow. You can get the 6.5 is the lowest you can get, but they've raised that rate. It was 5. And then I think they realized they were underpricing what they were offering. Now I haven't used them and I don't know if I would, because that's the point is I think they still have, they claim to not have any rehypothecation or anything like that. But I think we're very, very close to, and by close, I mean, maybe months and maybe a year or two from being able to take Bitcoin, drop it in Robinhood, and for them to increase your margin availability because of that, because it is just
spot
it's
Bitcoin,
better collateral. Spot Bitcoin as collateral in the existing financial system with the same buffers, right, that allow you to kind of be notified. You've got margin health, that they're looking at your whole portfolio, so you can offset Bitcoin losses with like, a chunk invested in the Qs or something. So I just think these kind of operations for now, in my opinion, you should be very careful in that. I've actually used the Morpho product. Nothing happened, right? But it was unnerving when we were getting close to the auto liquidation levels.
Yeah.
So,
Meta, let me ask you this question here: what comes first? What you just explained with spot Bitcoin being valued in your portfolio, or dropping the maintenance to 25% on these preferreds?
I think actually we're probably closer to and I think it comes through the re-rating of strategy. I think that's why they did a lot of the things they did over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
By adding STRC, by adding the cash position, by saying they would sell Bitcoin if they had to service the distributions.
Yeah. So lower maintenance, you think is going to be first?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I could see a path for either one actually. Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be by a great degree. I think, either one of them, because we could see Bitcoin really be brought into the financial system after
July.
You know, after the,
Yeah.
the Clarity Act and all the things that are associated with
Absolutely.
it, I think you start to see it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
be treated as it should be treated.
Well, yeah, and to your point, they could both possibly happen within the same week at that point. You know, the lower maintenance and value of your Bitcoin in your portfolio. Yeah. Any final word then, Adam, Ryan, or Meta?
Well,
Just keep stacking.
keep stacking. I'm looking at your STRC live at 195, and I'm watching a SATA ATM tracker today, and it's at 175. So they're within 20 almost of each other, and that's pretty crazy, even just today, right? So.
Yeah, I'm seeing here 228 to 196 is what SATA picked up.
Oh, really? Yeah, we got different
incredible.
trackers, obviously, but yeah.
Like they are definitely picking up steam. This is great to see.
Dude, they're gonna they're gonna double their Bitcoin holding within the end of the year, probably.
That daily dividend
right.
is working for them already. So yeah.
Yeah, they didn't even pay out the first one yet. We're still 2 weeks away.
Yeah, people just want in. They just it got them on the radar of more people, obviously, right? So it's good.
All right, boys. Frogs, this has been great. Thanks for joining the pool here. Yeah, keep stacking, as Adam said. That's you can't go wrong with that. Buy at any price because it's obviously going to mean more.
Everything's on sale right now.
That's
for long,
and it's going to protect your identity. like what Sailor says. You know, if you want to escape the matrix, you need Bitcoin. And I don't know how much clearer he can make it by just that saying there. So, guys, stay out of that collateral damage. Let us know in the comments what you guys are looking forward to next week and what you're stacking here in your portfolio. So, for Ryan, Adam, Meta, thanks so much for watching. And if you guys enjoyed this video, check out the portfolio series right up top.
South America tired of fiat pain. Africa rising, breaking every chain. The old system losing its reign. Now the tankers make a new lane. Straight is open, straight is closed. Oh yeah, straight is open, straight is closed. Tankers glide through the narrow gate. World's most vital shipping straight. Instant payment, no more wait. Bitcoin settles the debate. Straight is open. Straight is closed. Straight is open. Straight is closed. Hey, hey. People worldwide feeling the shift. Wallets in hand, no more banker shit. From Lagos to La Paz, they lift. Fiat control starts to drift. Straight is open. Straight is closed. Straight is open. Straight is closed. Ships confirm, the sets are sent. Freedom message loud and clear intent. The Strait of Hormuz represents